the Ertl car, Ertl, they make farms, and they wanted to get into model trains, I guess. And this was back in what I could figure out was probably about 97, 98. They came out with their line of freight cars. And at the same time, uh, Katie was coming out with their PS1 boxcar. And Katie was advertising the car for 30 bucks. And everybody was going crazy. That was way outrageous a price. But if you look at the quality of the Katie car, where it snaps together, it doesn't, there's no glue, and the accuracy of the cars. At the time, they were a little iffy on their paint, and they still are because of the way they do things. But it did not compare. They wanted $30 for this car, and there was really no comparison. This is a nice car. There's nothing wrong with it at all, but it doesn't compare to the quality of the Katie car. So they just, in their lettering, their stenciling, or however they did it, was not very accurate. Everything was they did accurate railroads, but the stuff is just not. It's like F&C decals or the old Walthers decals. The stuff just
lettering was all wrong.
Yeah, it's just not as quality as it should be for that price. And one thing that's kind of interesting that I noticed on this box when I was putting this in here is it says 50-foot USRA double sheath boxcar. They're 40-foot cars, so they couldn't even measure. But anyway, being as I modeled the Minneapolis St. Louis, they had a lot of these double sheath cars. They bought most of them used. They liked them, were tight cars for hauling grain. I made up a little list here of, hope everybody can see it. The top of it's covered up by me, for me. But anyway, the first was 22,000 series cars. They got 300 of those in 1919, 1920. They were part of the deal. I don't know if you know about how the USRA operated with these freight cars. After World War I, the railroads were pretty bad, sorry shape, and they were actually controlled by the government during the wartime. And so the government came up with some plans for some freight cars, and they basically forced them on the railroads. I don't know who got what and why. I sold all of my RP Sykes, which would have told me. But anyway, these cars were retired, 300 of them, and they were bought new, and then they were retired in 1950. There's some confusion here with this information by Gene Green. If you look in the ORERs, the 25,000 series is 25,000 to 25,898. They're all even number cars. And if you look at here, they bought some XP&M cars in 37, and they bought some more cars of undisclosed nature from where they came from in 1940 used, and then they bought more cars in 1939 that were XP&M cars. These all came from Hyman Michaels, and I think at the time the railroad was in receivership, and Lucian Sprague was selling off all the junk that they had, and then buying these cars that other people were turning in, and then refurbishing them just prior to World War II. So, and they lasted fine through the war, and in '53 they were all discontinued because of the retirement. They were retired due to the K-brake interchange ban in 1953, and they were not updated with AB brakes. Then you have the 51,000 series 200 cars they bought used again from the Omaha, and then the last group, the 52,000s. These cars were rebuilt from reefers, and they basically kept the underframe from the reefer cars, and they built a body using the USRA plans on them, which is kind of interesting. like I said, these numbers don't add up. So, and I asked Gene about it, and he said the computer with all this data on it has been lost for years, and he has no idea. This kind of goes through that a little bit more. You can see that in the 1945 ORER, that first group of cars that originally there were 300 of, there were still 292 on the roster. They only lost 8 cars. And that 25,000 series, they listed as 393 cars. In that number series, there could only be 450 cars because you're only using half the numbers, just the even numbers. But the adding up what Gene had was 637. So that's a bit confusing. The 51s, they'd only lost 3 cars, and the 52s, they still had all of those. This is from the Rail Model Journal. I still have all of those. This is from May of '98. This would be an article probably by Richard Hendrickson on when Ertl came out with these cars. He used to do that a lot when a manufacturer would come out with a new freight car or locomotive, mostly freight cars, and he would talk about which ones were good, which ones were iffy, and which ones were not accurate at all. But anyway, it shows that 22,000 series, 300 cars. It shows the cars that got from the Omaha and the cars from Pierre Marquette were all listed here. I'll look at the prototype cars first. The top photo here was the original stenciling, the way they were delivered. And then in 37, they came up with the idea of putting their Peoria Gateway slogan on the cars. And because they were wood cars, they put them on the doors. Later on, when they got steel cars with the corrugated doors, then they moved the slogan over under the road name. But these first cars, there are a few of these USRA cars that had this fascia strip along the top. I don't know if that was part of the deal. I have no idea why some cars have it, some don't. But these 22,000s did. Also, what I enjoyed was there's 3 photos with 3 different stenciling locations for that slogan. So if you're going to do one of these cars, you don't have to look at any pictures. Just put it on wherever you want. And here's a nice photo right out of the just rehabilitated in April of '39. One of the PM cars, and you can see everything is black except all the steel is black, and just the wood is boxcar red. One thing I was debating when I was building my models, and I'm looking at this photo again now, and it looks like all the grab irons were black, and mine are not, and I'm not changing them. Here's one of the later batches from that group, another PM car. And these guys had different doors. They had rollers at the bottom instead of hung by the top. And when we're looking at this car, if you notice on the end of the car, they put their name, their initials, and the number on 2 of those ribs. That'll show up here in a little bit. Right now, as a matter of fact. This is a photo of a train on the branch line I model. And if we zoom in on that boxcar behind the engine, you'll see that it still has the PM initials and some of their number. And then if you look below that on the ribs, the second and third rib down, you'll see where it says Emmons St. L and the number below it. So I'm not sure if all of the cars were as nicely redone as that one that I just showed you or not. This is the only photo I've ever seen of one of the 51,000 cars that came from the Omaha. And in looking at this photo, it looks like it may have that fascia strip on it too. And I neglected to put that on my car, but it looks like it has that. Again, the only photos of those cars that were rebuilt from reefer cars. The top photo is from Louis Cleason. He took that photo up at Cedar Lake, and the lower photo is a screenshot from an M&C&L movie where they panned over some of these cars that were just freshly out of the shops. And you can see in both photos that dreadnought end. Because when they built these things in 41 or 42, they could no longer get that Murphy end that was on the original cars. So they substituted what was available at the time. So now we'll look at the models. I decided to take some pictures after I was started to be underway here. In the bath is red caboose car, and that lettering comes off real easy. But I had a total of 5 of these things that I bought at a flea market at the last minute. The guy begged me to take them basically, and they didn't have any roofs. You can see there's doors missing, there's grab irons broken off of them, coupler pocket covers are missing. They were just scrap, but for $4 or $5 a piece, they're not bad cars, really. They could be turned into something worthwhile. And what I did here is I was more or less just trying to get the lettering off of them. So I took a toothbrush, dip it in the scale coat thinner or stripper, and then just lay it on the sides over the lettering, and eventually it takes it off. This is a photo I got from eBay showing that the AB brake system that they put under these cars. And I don't know how many cars would have received AB brakes that still had their wooden sides. I don't know. They do come apart. This is everything that comes off of the car. It means I didn't have any roofs. It's easy to look inside and see those screws that hold the fish belly under the car. The trucks are pretty gross. They've got awful big journal boxes. I throw them in the garbage. What you have to do is backdate it to the K brake system, or KC in this case, which is combined, where they took the 2 components of the K brake system and put them in one unit. You can see the cylinder and then the reservoir attached to it. In this particular car, I was just snapping off the AB brakes, and then I basically spread open the clevis and slipped it over the chain for the emergency brake. This one here, I used my phone camera and it focused on the wrong half of the bottom. But this one I used from the scrap box, a K brake that didn't have a clevis or a shaft on it, broken off. And I had also broken off the chain. So I basically stuck it on there and then made a little piece of scrap of styrene for the lever that would normally be hooked to. And finally, the third time I got it for as good as I was going to get. This is, I believe, a CalScale brake unit. And I left the chain and the lever on the car. And then this brake unit, the clevis is only that size. It's not any longer. So it butts up against there pretty nicely. Some of these cars, I said, had the corner steps, sill steps broken off of them. So the sides are awful thin. So I had to go ahead and put some plastic blocks in the corners so I could drill and add the A-line steps. The end of this car was still in good shape, still had all plastic grabs and the brake gear. So I just left this one as is because I'm doing 4 of these things at once. This one here, the brake stuff was okay, but I replaced all of the grab irons. I'm out of drop grabs now after doing 4 of these. And this one here, everything went. Everything has been replaced with Tichy parts. The one car that's going to be the 52,000 series, I have the ends here, the square corner dreadnought ends. from Detail West. They're no longer available, but I have a couple of packages left. And you see I've cut the left end off the car already, and I'm cutting the right end off. And then these are the ends ready to be glued onto the car. I've got the different door on the car with the lower rollers on it. What I hate about a lot of these rebuilt cars, or just composite cars in general, is a lot of them, the end ladders were made up of rungs, of grab iron rungs. And you have to build these things. So you have to make stiles out of styrene, then try and center punch them and drill them without breaking them or damaging them in any way, and then fit them with the grab irons, the drop grabs. On the last one I did, I think, excuse me, a different car I'll show you later on. What I did is I put like a 20 by 30,000 piece on for the style on the left, and then put a thinner piece on for the one on the right. And then I just cut all the right grab irons off. And so then butted up against that one. Now I had drill holes in one. This is the end of one of the cars. Gene Green found this thing and took several pictures of it that on the inside, and all stuff that's nice but worthless to the modeler. But then he took a good photo of the end. And this is actually the B end of the car. You can see where the brake staff bracket was here, and here's where the brake steps were fastened on, and the placard was over here. And then this is my B end here. I didn't notice that other stuff when I did this one. And where do I get these parts from that I'm using on this? The top drawer that's open is just brake parts. You can see there's a lot of resin pieces in there because there's a lot of brake parts with the resin kits. The lower bin that's open is just leftovers from resin kits. And there's hundreds and hundreds of pieces in there. And if I'm looking for something in particular, I'll dump that all out and sort through it. And I could have probably went to Minneapolis and bought it and got back before I find what I'm looking for. But anyway, then the orange box at the bottom, that is scraps of styrene strips, brass rod, and things like that. Now, the top one, looking at the sides, the top car, I put new steps on, but I left those end rail, the grab irons on the right end because they're still in good shape. I'll replace them on the left. And then the other one gets a Tichy door with the lower rollers and plastic. I left the plastic steps on that one. For the roofs, none of these had roofs. Before I could build this thing, I had to get a hold of Andrew Dahlm at Westerfield and have him make me a bunch of roofs for these cars. And the roofs, you can see they were made in two pieces and cast together. And you have to run your knife down the middle of that seam and then be able to break it without breaking it back in two pieces again. So it's a little tough to keep it in one piece, but give it a little bit of a beat in the middle. And then to support that thin piece of resin, I put a plastic rod down the center of the roof. These roofs are all different lengths. A lot of the problems, they have shrinkage problems with resin. And so I've added some plastic to each end to lengthen out the roof. And this one I've added the Tichy running boards to it because they make a single sheath USRA car so that you can buy these running boards separate. And the reason I like them for these cars is because the longitudinal running boards have boards that are perpendicular to the main running board, where a normal box car would have all of the boards would run the same direction. Now I've painted the sides of this thing with some Floquil paint because I have a hell of a time with True Color. If you mask it, it peels off. It doesn't stick for crap. but it's nice paint. It's got a nice gloss to it, and it's the only one you can get now that is acrylic. So anyway, here I've masked them off and painted all the black on the cars. Here I've gone ahead and brush painted the the corner bracing, and I've added running boards to the other cars. Now I'm going to have to paint those. The ends of the cars, the one on the left, a lot of times to get over the brake staff and the retainer line, they'll put what we in conduit called a saddle bend in it to get basically it's a little loop to get out around the other stuff. On the A end of the car it would just be a straight rod, and the car that I left the end the Ertl brake gear on, I was able to just run a straight one past them, not have to mess around with the bend. Now I wanted to paint those running boards, so I thought I'd just take a piece of card and lay it against the side to act as a mask. But when I hit the car with the air from the airbrush, it pushed the car away and I sprayed on the side of it. So that was a failure. And then before, someone had talked about decals, wanted to know how to decal a car. So I took these two photos here of the way I do it, the way I've done it for 40 years. Is basically I'll cut out the lettering from the sheet, and then I'll stab it with my knife, dip it in the water until the paper is soaked, and then lay it on the car. And when I get all of it done, it'll have time to sit there and release, and then I can slide the lettering or the decal film off of the paper and dispose of the paper. And I do that with a duller knife, so I'm not stabbing the decal paper and dragging it all over the car. And then the bottom one, once you put everything in place where you want it, I let it set for a little bit, and then I come back and douse it with Salvo set so that it supposedly will shrink into the deviations in the body. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with wood cars, it does not go down well into those seams between the boards. So you have to take a fairly sharp knife and go and cut every goddamn board and go back and douse it again with Salvo set. Another thing I wanted to do on these, well, before I get to that, if you look at the bottom car, the 22506, if you look at the Peoria Gateway, you can see here's some silvering, and there's some silvering here and here. This is all stuff I've got to go back and cut again and douse down with more Salvo set. But what I thought I would do is, because I was going to weather these cars, I thought I would just mask off where the reweigh information and where the repack data was going to be. And then after the car is weathered, they would look new and be different instead of painting these patches on. So the first thing I did for weathering these cars is I have an off-white, the little bottles of Testors enamel that you get at craft stores and stuff that have been around for 1,000,000 years. The little square bottles. I bought one of those in off-white, and I added a dab of that to some dull coat that's been mixed 50-50 with lacquer thinner. And then I'll spray that on the car and it'll lighten it up somewhat. I also have two more colors tints that I keep of dull coat. One is a brown and one is a... Now here I've gone back after I've used the different weathering techniques with the airbrush and added the reweigh information, the new weights of the car, the reweigh station, and then as Marshalltown. And the bottom one is I've reweighed to 1948 because I model 48 to 50, and I can't see what I put on the top one. I think it was 47. And then over on the right, I put the information for the the journal repacking. They don't have to be the same date. They would repack the journals more than they would reweigh the car. Usually they only reweigh the cars if they did replace the side, replace wheels mostly, because that would change the weight of the car a couple 100 pounds. Then I went after that, and you can see I failed miserably in trying to keep that area where the patch would have been done a different color. It didn't work out. But anyway, I usually use Prismacolor, but I have a couple other brands in there, and I'll put those on the car. And then the eraser is just to go over them to kind of blend them a little bit so they're not so stark. The couple of the cars, they didn't have the coupler pocket covers on anymore, so I had to make some out of just sheet styrene scraps. I like to use pan pastels. It's quick. You can weather a car in 30 seconds. And these are the colors that I have in this holder that Scott Thornton made 3D printed. These are the colors that I have in there. But I will always use burnt umber with that sharp angled brush for wheel spatter on the end of the car, and also use it on the underside of the car. I'll use the back as a dark gray. I'll use that or the black and the light gray at times. The rusty color, I've got 3 or 4 of these. I don't know what they're called, different rusty or brown colors, and I don't use them very often. So here's the car after the final weathering, the prototype, and then the model. And I've used K4 decals on this car. All these cars have Tahoe trucks, which are the best on the market, and wheel sets and KD couplers. You can see the wheel splash on the end that I did with that sharp brush. The other car, this one has Oddballs decals, if you remember that guy. If you've ever met him, you'd understand why he named himself Oddballs. But his decals, the road name's a little long, and the initials and the number are a little condensed. Again, another one I did with the Oddballs. And then here's one with the K4 again. And the K4 are pretty accurate, I have to say, because I gave them the stenciling diagrams for the car. So they got it pretty close. This car now belongs to Kurt Stobie. Here's the Westerfield decals on this particular car. Westerfield, his initials are a little large and a little stretched out. They should be condensed and smaller a little more. And here's that car on Jeff Halloran's layout. He now owns that car. There, I have another car, Ertl car, that I've had for quite a long time. This one, I've just liked this car. It's basically the Ertl car, but it's much easier to modify, because all you have to do is scrape off the grab irons on the right side, put a ladder on it, and then paint and decal it. And I was looking at this today, and I see I left the trucks under it, the Ertl trucks, and you can see there must be 150-ton trucks by the size of those journal boxes. They're really large. Other Ertl cars that they put out, they made a low side Gone, which is really kind of a nice car. You don't see them every day. I had a model of those years ago. I built one. They also made a flat car. This one here, the lettering on this one is fairly accurate. And unfortunately, this is a Tichy car. I didn't have an Ertl flat car. Some people go crazy with these things, and they still want $30 for them if they have a load attached to them. So you can pick up the Tichy car for $8 to $10 sometimes, and makes into a really nice kit, really nice car. While I was looking for information, I've collected all of the essential freight cars series that Ted Collada put in Craftsman several years ago, And here's the one on his double sheath boxcars. He did an MSA car. Unfortunately, he painted it all red. But then a lot of these cars were rebuilt in the 30s. And one that was rebuilt that kept everything the same except for new sides was the Charleston in West Carolina. And here's my model of that car. This is an ancient Sunshine kit, but it's the same car that I think Ted also made the rebuilds of the Northwestern cars. The Omaha cars were the ones that were green and yellow, and the only Omaha cars that were green and yellow were these cars. And the difference between this rebuild and the Rock Island rebuild is the roof. The Northwestern cars had the Viking roof, while the Rock Island cars had the normal roof, Murphy rectangular panel. And you can see they raised these cars up in height by adding a piece in between the top and the middle sections on the ends. This is a Chad Boaz model I've had for a number of years. He also did Santa Fe rebuilt these cars, and I got this from his book, and I happen to have one too. One of my favorite cars. I've had this forever. I should have taken a photo of the other side with the map. And you can see here, to raise this car up, they added more a piece with the old Murphy extrusions on the top. In Ted's article, he had a photo of the as-built Frisco cars, but they rebuilt those cars too. And I just happened to be working on this car when I was putting this thing together, and I was trying to drag it out as long as I possibly could. So I was adding anything in that was related to those cars. And this is another one of those ancient Sunshine kits. And what I've done here is taken black powder and just douse the whole car with it, like Tammy Faye Baker would do to her face. And being that was a little overdone, I've done this before, but this is the first time I used the Dawn Power Wash to squirt the sides, and then a toothbrush. I hold it under the sink and use a toothbrush to clean it off. And the power wash takes most of it off of the sides. Otherwise, the sides would look more like the roof if I hadn't used the detergent. And I found these photos of the Frisco cars being rebuilt. And here you can see they kept the underframe and the ends, but they added the sides. And then they put their old roof back on too. Here's the car when it's back in one piece again, and then finished and ready for service. And here's my Frisco car. After it's been done, I went back and put a little bit of pan pastels on the rivet lines to make them show up a little bit on this older model. Last year at Naperville, they gave out a mini kit to make a rebuilt Wabash car. And so this is that car. It's a Tichy rebuilt boxcar. Has different ends and different doors, I believe, that are resin. You replace the ones that come with the kit with the resin ones, and you get the decals for it too. Makes it into a nice car. And that's it. End of the game.
Very nice, Clark. Thanks for the Tammy Faye Baker reference.
Well, years ago, when they were doing whatever they were doing, somebody said, "How is Tammy Faye Baker's face like a ski slope? It has 4 inches of base and 10 inches of powder."
And long lift lines.
Yeah, that was it.
They also took her makeup off and found Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah,
Clark, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, I guess.
That is a
Okay.
question.
Have you used the Tichy door latch system for an old wood car on any of your cars?
You mean that little kit that they sell with all the funny little pieces in it
Yes, exactly.
that I don't know what any of them are.
Thank you.
I have
That's
those, and
what I wanted to know.
yeah, and I've actually stuck some pieces on a car just to make them look like they're supposed to have the pieces, but I have no idea what those pieces are.
Okay. Okay. That's my problem too.
All right. Well,
How long
we
did
have,
that last? Another half an hour is all.
yeah,
Okay,
you did 35 minutes. Very well done.
okay.
We've got Bob Blake scheduled next week. And he's going to do a program called Kick Up Your Switching. And then Ken Huff is on the 22nd with his Penske X23 boxcars presentation. And then I've yet to confirm with Jason Clocky, but that part of the railroad he showed us that was the last part he finished up. He has a presentation on how he built that. And so he may be able to do that for us on the 29th.
Did you see that at Naperville?
Did I see what? Oh, the
Jason-
presentation? Yes, I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
the best presentation as far as theatrics I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that's good.
and the way he stays on target for all of the different segments, it's probably one of the best ones I've seen in I don't know how long I've been going to these things.
Right. Yeah, that's
It
good.
was impressive.
Yes. So that will hopefully be on the 29th, and then that'll bring us to March. And maybe I've got a couple things here that are waiting in the wings. We thought we might do a vintage freight car panel discussion at some point. So I've kind of got that one. Maybe in March we do that. And then the other one is this one that we were talking about at the beginning today, trying to get Mitch and Rod and Ron to talk about the various ways that they make trees, the different ways that the different techniques they use. So we'll see about all that. We got to get a microphone on Mitch's computer one way or another. And so that's what's holding up that one. But anyhow, that's what we have coming up. And if you're interested in presenting, just let me know. We'll get you on the schedule. Oh, we may actually have John Underko may actually present in March as well. He's got a technique for making boxcars look better or making freight cars look better without actually doing a lot of work. And so we'll see about that. He and I talked that over yesterday, and so that's probably a month away or so before we're able to do that. So anything else today, gentlemen? All right, we'll wrap things up early and look forward to seeing you next week. And have a great Thursday night. Thanks for coming. And of course, as always, Clark, thanks for your presentation.
Thanks, Clark.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yep,
Clark.
bye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks. Bye.